How is it going, guys? Malagant here. We are going to be talking about what class to pick in Diablo 4. This video will try to basically tell you what the characters are trying to do in Diablo 4. And I would like to help you out to select the right class for you to choose at the very beginning, or perhaps like an alternative character that you're going to be creating by telling you what sort of things they're offering or their playstats. My suggestion to you, and this video's goal, is basically try to play the character that's going to be fitting your playstyle, because Diablo 4 is actually a long journey, especially at the beginning. Later on, when it comes to like seasonal gameplay and stuff, perhaps like since you have already been to campaign and you have already explored the sanctuary, the map, and you have, you kind of know what is coming your way, you know your expectations from the game, perhaps you can like choose the character then according to the fact that like, okay, flavor of the month, or maybe this content creator suggested that like rogue is going to be crazy strong in this league or this season, so let me jump into a rogue this time around. But I strongly suggest you to play the playstyle that you're going to be enjoying as your first character in Diablo 4. That is why I'm going to be making this video. Thank you for joining. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm doing bi-daily Diablo 4 content right now, and including some beginner friendly guides as well. Thank you. So let's start from Druid right over here. Druid is definitely not only a summoner when it comes to like beast summoner, let's say, but also a beast themselves too. So Druid is capable of shape-shifting into either a werewolf or a bear, I think, right? I did not play a Druid yet, but I do have a couple of friends that like not only got to level 100 but also like completely optimized their characters, and they're incredible late game. Druid can actually have a little bit of a rougher start into the game, perhaps like a little bit slower, but it becomes absolutely insane towards the mid game as far as I can tell, after especially like getting the right things or right setup together, let's say. So the Druid is controlling mostly hurricanes, tornadoes, a little bit of like nature and poison damage going on, some summoning options, but at the same time some shape-shifting options as well, as I have suggested. It can be very mobile, especially later towards the game, as when it comes to like stacking movement speed or charging into the battle, you can shapeshift with just one button. Perhaps you can like charge in as a bear and then slam as a bear as like a shockwave around you, and then start casting stuff. And while you're casting things, your character will be going back to normal mode. So these things are like all seamless. You don't necessarily have any sort of like a interruption when it comes to shapeshifting. It's incredibly seamless, and with one button, whichever ability that you use, the Druid is going to be taking that form accordingly. So there's no interruptions to the gameplay. Same goes for like the summoned units as well. It is very, very fluid, and one thing that I can say about like Diablo 4 is the gameplay is extremely fluid. It's, if anything, like on top of Diablo 3, it definitely is +1 in that case. So apart from that, Druids are like capable of being incredibly tanky. Not necessarily passively, but with active tankiness. What I mean by that is like by pressing buttons, you're capable of gaining a lot of fortification, a lot of barriers, or perhaps diminishing the power of like the enemies that are around you. At the same time, you can have heavy stun to the enemies, and you can have crazy DPS at the late game if you put the right things together. Definitely, that's what I have been observing from the Druid. Lots of tornadoes, hurricanes, good roots, some wolf summons, and at the same time, as I said, maybe like some pulverize, which is like a shockwave slam around the character while charging into the battle or dashing into the battle as like a werewolf form. So the next one that I'm going to talk about is the Rogue. This is yet another character that I have not played, and to be perfectly honest with you, this is the character that I have the least experience with. I do know that Rogue is crazy mobile, it can be, and at the same time they can be kind of deceptively tanky. That is like very interesting, because you're playing a very dodgy character where like you're getting in and out really quickly, you have high dodge chance, and at the same time your character is not going to be that fragile to begin with. You can dish out a lot of instant burst DPS when it comes to especially single target. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can have both daggers and bows at the same time. So you're going to be equipping both of these weapons simultaneously, which is letting you select either you know, bow abilities or dagger abilities at the same time in your bars, and whichever button you press, your character will be attacking with that weapon. So you can be playing a hybrid character where you're utilizing both the bow and the daggers, or you could be going one way, completely melee or completely ranged. That's going to be completely up to you, definitely. You can definitely utilize, and I've seen a lot of people do this, lots of poison damage or some sort of like a dagger throw ability to like delete characters from close range. So get in there and get some like ramped up close damage with like lots of vulnerability and crit damage coming together and just completely deleting single targets while, you know, dashing through the screens. It's a very, very mobile character, but it can also be deleted in about like, you know, in a matter of seconds if you do some sort of like a wrong dash. I've seen quite a bit of like content creators where, you know, playing hardcore characters, and Rogue has been crazy popular in my opinion in the launch of Diablo 4 so far from the content creators, especially on Twitch. But that said, so I have seen lots of like missteps where they're dashing out instead of like, you know, staying inside a bubble, or dashing into an explosion and they're just completely getting destroyed out of nowhere. It's like, oops, I guess I'm dead kind of scenario. And Rogue might be a little bit susceptible to things like that as well, but it's very, very high risk, high reward, which is also going to be my next point, the Sorcerer. Sorcerer is actually the character that I played up until level 100. That was my first level 100 so far. I played a complete cold Sorcerer, but I do know about the other builds. You know, you're capable of like doing hybrid Sorcerer, controlling all the elements, and the elements are obviously lightning, cold, and fire. You could do some sort of like a fire damage over time, or you could do some sort of like a melee lightning, which you're having a high crit chance and high stun rate to the enemies while getting inside, collecting everything together and popping them with the lightning. It's very, very satisfying gameplay, let me tell you. And that might actually be the suggested leveling up method as well. As I said down below in the description, if you end up like selecting the Sorcerer, definitely check out the suggested leveling methods for it. So that being said, what is the Sorcerer trying to do? Right now I played cold the entire time. I was using like Blizzard to control my screen. It has very, very high crowd control and good build up on the bosses as well. So there are going to be like stagger build up on the bosses, just like Lost Ark if you have played that. And Sorcerer is very good when it comes to like building that up. Sorcerer is also extremely good to dish out damage when a boss is broken, because you're capable of triple dipping from one of the legendary powers where they're immobilized, stunned, and frozen at the same time, and you're capable of just like completely destroying those things when it comes to bosses when they're broken. So very good single player, and at the same time very, very good group play as well with the Sorcerer, simply because like you can sort of appreciate the fact that like you're bringing a lot of DPS to the group, but at the same time your group is bringing lots of things for you. So perhaps they're going to be tanking the mobs, otherwise that would have been a problem for you, or maybe they're going to be giving you speed that you're kind of lacking normally. So that type of thing is like very interesting when you're playing Sorcerer. With the Sorcerer, you can 100% be some sort of like a glass cannon. In fact, the Sorcerer has a passive skill called Glass Cannon. You're going to be dealing, you know, the more points you have in it, you're going to be dealing multiplicatively more damage, but at the same time in return you'll be taking more as well. I've actually at one point had 7 points into Glass Cannon. Normally you can have 3, and then on top of that you can have like some from your necklace, some from your chest. Those are the ones that I managed to find, and then I ended up having 7 points into it. My character was literally dying to a projectile that was like flying from off screen, but at the same time I was absolutely one-shotting everything. Sorcerer can actually be ridiculously tanky as well, but it's yet again a little bit like the Druid, but less uptime. So it's instead of passive, it's more active mitigation. So you have like a couple of armors that you could press, so like the Flame Shield, which is going to be giving you even immunity up to 2 seconds, and then you can stack some like cooldown reduction. You know, and using other things you can actually reduce the cooldown of these as well. Or you can have like the Frost Armor, which is going to be giving you quite a bit of like absorption and slowing the enemies around you, etc. So there's quite a bit of like options when it comes to getting out of dodge or being very tanky against like some certain stuff, or perhaps like just gaining immunity is also possible when you wanted to. One thing that I'm going to be saying, and this might be affecting the rogue as well a little bit, is I have not played rogue myself. I'm not going to be commenting on that so much, and this thing that I'm going to say is probably going to be effect on the necromancer as well. In Diablo 4, unfortunately, towards the end game, there's quite a bit of CC going on in the game. So towards the character that you're playing. The Barbarian and the Druid, they're kind of capable of gaining unstoppable, I think is what it's called, basically CC immunity. And you can do this reliably, especially as a Barbarian. I think Druid is capable of doing this very reliably as well. But the three classes in the middle, so we are talking about Sorcerer mainly right here, but like I think it goes for Necromancer and the Rogue as well. Not being able to gain reliable unstoppable kind of makes you susceptible to CC, and there's quite a bit of CC at the end. The next one that I'm going to be covering is going to be the Necromancer. Necromancer is the ultimate summoner. Right now in the game, the summoner builds are not the strongest, but they're definitely viable. At the very least, you're capable of like finishing the game and also grinding the late game, which is, you know, you don't necessarily have the leaderboard right now. So maybe with the meta shake in the season coming up next, perhaps it's going to be stronger. But that being said, with the Necromancer, with just one button, you could actually like spawn a lot of skeletons, and if you have a full army with that same button again, you can actually like buff them. Apart from that, there's obviously like golem summoning. Inherently, the Necromancer has something built in, which is the corpses, right? So every single unit is either leaving a corpse when they're dead, or your abilities are capable of like producing corpses from just their hits as well, which then you utilize these corpses to basically either ramp your damage up, or perhaps summon more units from them, or maybe buff your minions, or perhaps like basically buff yourself. Or maybe even like explode these corpses with the corpse explosion spell. There's lots of like bone lance action going on, if you know this from like Diablo 3, and yeah, lots of curses obviously from the Necromancer as well. It can be, you know, in the midst of everything, or it could be like a range character. Necromancer could actually be played as like not only a mobile AoE, but at the same time it can be played as a spellcaster that is like, instead of just any summoning whatsoever, you can be like complete spellcaster, an absolute beast when it comes to like single target DPS with the lances. It's absolutely insane. You could even, I believe, become a melee character as a Necromancer with like sweeps and stuff. So those are going to be the information that I will be giving from the Necromancer. It can be a very, very interesting playstyle, and if you would like to control the dead like this, or maybe even try to make yourself a summoning character, last class is going to be Barbarian, which is, you know, my new main. I have been playing Barbarian. I'm like level 85 or something. I'm taking it pretty slow right now. Barbarian is perhaps a little bit of a slow start at the beginning as well. I didn't really like check out any guides at all up until the midsection of the game. Then I, you know, directly checked out a late game guide and just religiously followed it, let's say. I've been playing a Whirlwind, and Blizzard's Whirlwind, in my opinion, I played a lot of ARPGs, guys. I played them for several hundred hours. And Blizzard's Whirlwind, in my opinion, is the best Whirlwind always. So in this game, from the beginning, the Whirlwind just feels amazing. I really want to emphasize this. So if you're into playing a melee Whirlwind, 100% check out Barbarian. It's incredible. Apart from the Fury, so your resource, right? Apart from the Fury generation, which is kind of like a rage from World of Warcraft, apart from just controlling your rage or fury, there's nothing going to be stopping you when you're whirlwinding, and it's incredible. You know, you can also use other 4 abilities that are going to be instant casts while you're whirlwinding as well, so you won't need to like interrupt your own whirlwind, apart from, as I said, just running out of fury, running out of fuel. Apart from that, there are like some very interesting builds in the Barbarian as well. You could definitely be some sort of like a supportive character and, you know, collect things together, buff your allies, buff yourself, give yourself lots of unstoppable SCC immunity, and you can have like an insane uptime on this if you unite this with your ultimate ability, which is going to be berserking you as well. When it comes to the builds of Barbarian, right? You can have some sort of like a bleed stacking character. As I said, a whirlwind character that's ridiculously fast when it comes to like, you know, traveling the map, let's say. You can have some sort of like a heavy single target, or like a, you know, let's say frontal cone AoE with like the Hota build, Hammer of the Ancients. It's absolutely insane damage right now, and it's very satisfying to see those high damage numbers also. Apart from that, I think like that's pretty much about it when it comes to the Barbarian builds. These are going to be the classes, so I really hope that like this video was useful for you when it comes to like at the very least understanding what they are trying to do. Perhaps like it was a little bit too, let's say, obvious. If that's the case, I am sorry, but if you have survived up until this section of, you know, this part of this video, thank you very much for watching. I really, as I said, hope that like it was useful, and I'm going to be seeing you on the next one. Thank you, YouTube. Cheers.